First item is the pension investment report. Gene McCabe, you're up, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good to be with all of you. Glad
Welcome.
to see you all. Some new faces too since my last meeting with you. If we start on the booklet that I sent out from September 30th, that quarter was a very good quarter, pretty much across the board. You actually you made your actuarial assumption in the first quarter. We can just hold the line there. It'll be a good fiscal year. From September 30th until today, we've had a pretty rocky market. You just should know your pension plan is up about $26,000, $27,000 higher than it was September 30th. So not much change, but a pretty interesting ride. What I would say, really, that the 70% equity allocation that we had adopted long ago in the interest of making up ground here and funding is paying off, has been paying off. And I think more than ever, the 30% fixed income allocation it's not dead money, it's safer money, more stable money, but it's a dead zone in terms of return. You know, going forward, we'll show in the booklet returns, you know, 5% or so from the bond portfolio. And that really is math. You know, it's a matter of bonds trading at a premium to their par value because interest rates have become so low. And at this level, the Fed does not want to go into negative interest rates. So the market is not anticipating further declines in interest rates and therefore further rises in price. But meanwhile, when interest rates are zero, there you go. So we have a bond portfolio that I'm expecting to just kind of flatline going forward. It's a safe haven, you know, if we hit more volatility in stocks, but that 30% of the portfolio, I don't expect to generate meaningful returns that will contribute to achieving the actuarial assumption. So it leaves it up to the stock portfolio, which, as we all know, the stock market has had a tremendous recovery from late March. And based on, I think, two things, which I mentioned in the email I sent out to you. I think it's the Fed and accommodative Federal Reserve Bank policies, and it's Congress and Congress's performance in delivering stimulus packages. When we saw the sell-off this week, I think that was a response to Congress not delivering what the market wanted. You know, they approved a Supreme Court judge and they adjourned. No stimulus package. And the market reacted. It's that stimulus package that has been the lifeline for the economy when unemployment is at 10% and, you know, places are closing. So we kind of need that. And its absence was felt this week. So we worry about COVID, we worry about earnings, we worry about 60 different things, the election, China, whatever it might be. It really comes back to the Fed. The Fed is on our side. The Fed is supporting the stock market. It's become take risk and maybe earn money, take no risk and it's a zero interest rate environment. So the Fed is pushing stocks and trying to reassure the markets as to risk. And then Congress, it's up to Congress to pass those stimulus bills as needed. And the expectation is when Congress resumes, we will see that. I mean, I don't think
now starting. All
jury's
attendees
out.
on listen only mode.
Well, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for showing up today, signing up for the webinar. I want to thank also to John Siegenthaler, their winner today. And
Hello, Bill.
like I say, he leads the industry.
Good afternoon.
Thinking
That's weird.
designs
There's-
and the systems based on solid engineering principles.
Hey,
And,
everybody mute.
Economics 23, which is mainly what Siggy's going to be talking about today, is it's on the streets, mailed out. So keep an eye out for that. If you don't see it within the next couple of days or week, let us know, or maybe go to the site and make sure that we've got all your information or mailing.
Bill, I think that was you. Okay,
We're okay now?
I think so.
Okay,
I've got a question for you, Gene.
please.
My understanding is that you can't be evicted anymore. That's come to an end. And what I sense is that this money is all owed by the renters, the landlords, and I'm not talking about the ones that own 1,000 homes. I'm talking about the typical landlord with, in a three floor apartment or whatever, or a house that they own. They haven't been able to pay the bank. Isn't there going to be a crisis a crunch all of a sudden, the end of the year or even before that? When all these bills come due and the only people who are going to foreclose are the banks, and I don't know what they're going to do with all this property all of a sudden. Isn't there something going to happen to either the banks have to give up a little something too, or aren't we headed for a financial crisis just because of these holdups that were well intended, but to me it seems that's the unintended consequence is we're going to have a giant mess in front of us.
Well, we're certainly going to have a huge deficit, government deficit. The interest rates being as low as they are helps finance that. I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know. I mean, the market, if you look at the stock market, the answer is no. If that were kind of an evident scenario, the market wouldn't be doing what it's doing. But there certainly is going to be a bill to pay for all of this aid, all the stimulus package, and all the forbearance, foregoing, all of the deferred payments. But is it a crisis, or is it a reckoning day or something dramatic in that fashion? We're not seeing it. The other concern we had was inflation. When the Fed is just printing money, as it has been, you'd think that alone would cause the currency to lose value. This modern monetary theory says counter. We learned in 2008-9 with the stimulus package and with other things going on then, it did not contribute to an elevated level of inflation. And when it comes to demographics in the US, when it comes to the availability of oil, there's no OPEC, closing the availability to us. Those kinds of things in the past are no longer pressuring prices. So in the absence of that, we just have this Fed printing machine. But again, the experts are saying it is not of itself inflationary. So we're kind of kicking the can down the road, much as Europe did with the sovereign debt issues they had for the past decade. But I think the feeling is the pain is less if you provide the aid at the time it's needed and try and keep the payroll on, give forgivable loans, keep the business running is better than dealing with everybody is homeless and unemployed.
Exactly.
We'll all learn. Honestly, I don't know the answer to your question. We'll all learn. We'll find out. I hope it's not a terrible lesson, but the government's doing what it thinks it can do to alleviate pain here. Certainly in the short term, and hopefully it works longer.
Anyone else have any questions? We don't want to cut you off. Do you have any other items you're going to present to us, Gene?
If you want to take a look, we can take 5 minutes and go through the booklet.
Okay.
If it's of interest, I don't need to.
Anyone want to further pursue it or move on? You have your answer. You're able to go back on the golf course.
Okay. I will just say a couple of things. I'll let you go. I understand I'm not wanted, but the market leadership among stocks, it's 15 stocks. It's not the whole market. It's the tech names that have been pulling the wagon here. If you don't have them in your portfolio, your performance is very different than if you do. Dividends have gotten hit because those companies are the kind of traditional companies. Their revenues have fallen off. They've reduced or eliminated dividends. They've become the shakier ones. The riskier, kind of traditionally riskier names have been the winners. So going forward, expectations, stocks seem fully valued. Bonds are returning zero. I would just keep your expectations down low. As far as the election goes, it seems the market can play it both ways. Trump might have a more business-friendly environment. Biden, on the other hand, and maybe if there's a Democratic sweep, that stimulus package that we didn't get this week probably happens in the first 20 minutes. So there's a good feeling no matter who takes over, as long as there's a kind of a peaceful transition, should there be a transition, that it's, goes uneventfully.
Fair
So we're
enough.
not looking at the election as some kind of a big problem, for the market. And there, I appreciate your time. I know you have a full agenda. Pam?
Jean, you just might want to discuss the contribution for next year and how that was arrived at. Or
I'm
we
sure.
were looking,
Pam, that was the actuary,
oh, I'm sorry.
You're thinking about the actuary.
right?
I am. I'm also looking at it from this point of view. All right, sorry about that.
No trouble.
John has to turn his camera on.
Okay.
Well, I'll sign off.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Jean,
Mark.
thank you.
Mark,
Thank
thank
you
you for
very much.
everything. Please be in touch if anything comes up.
Okay,
Keep going.
thanks.
Keep
Bye-bye.
going. Next item, public input. I hear none. Go to minutes. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of
I'm Craig, move
Thursday,
to approve.
September 24th. Wait a minute, yeah, 24th.
Move to approve.
Who was that?
Tom Craig.
Tom, okay, a second
I second it.
from
Bob.
Bob. Any discussion, questions? Hello, John.
There he is.
All those in favor will go down the list here. Chris? Okay, you signaled one.
Aye, there we go.
Bob,
Aye.
George? Your hand is up, Tom,
Yes.
Bill? John? And what happened to Gina? Where'd she go?
She's now on phone. Or she just has her picture.
She has her doesn't have her picture on.
Right, she's just on no
So
video.
Say something, Gina. Say yes. So here you are. Here you're coming.
You hear me, Alan?
I hear you, John.
Okay, technical glitches over here.
I'm waiting for Gina to, I see her, the square is here, but she hasn't arrived.
Gina said yes.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Okay. You said yes and I say yes, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Executive Director report. Pam, you're up.
Okay, we're still doing well with water purchases. Getting definitely income is much above last year's, so budgets are looking good. We're started the remediation at the Hope Street tank site. The contractor has been in and clearing the site, and we'll probably discuss that a little bit more in executive session later on. Still no progress on our elevator. For some reason, this engineering firm has got more critical issues going on than working with us on the elevator. At this point in time, we may be better off waiting till spring anyway, because prices for any type of construction have been escalating quite a bit.
So your comment in your report said that their drawings were not up to your standard, and what's that about?
Essentially, they didn't provide enough information, so we have not accepted them. We're requested that they do more detailed information on their specifications and on their drawings.
George, you had a question? You're not coming
You're
through.
muted.
Turn on, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
George, you're muted.
There you go.
Am I on?
There,
Yeah.
Now you're on.
It says on the order purchase, it says we hit a max day of 4.3 MGD towards the end of the month. What happens on a max day? Does that do anything to the system? It just means certain people can't get water that want it, or what does that mean?
Nope, that's just, we keep track actually of how much we use every day. And we do record our max day just as a comparison to how we're doing compared to the rest of the month and to other years.
Oh, so it's not a max for the system, it's just a max on a day-by-day basis?
It's the maximum on a daily basis for the month.
So what is our maximum volume? I mean, what can it produce up to? 5 or something, or?
Well, we can go up into the 5 and 6 range.
Okey doke, thank you. I just didn't understand that. Thank you.
Don't we do that through a combination of drawdown from the tanks as well as what we bring in from Providence during the day? Because we've hit over 7 sometime.
If we calculate with the tanks involved, but generally this is just strictly based on the water we're purchasing from Providence. So that's based on the daily water meter reading.
Okay, any other question, George?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have a question? All right.
One thing I did want to mention is we are working on the budgets, and we'll probably be looking to do a finance committee meeting sometime before the next board meeting.
Sounds good.
Give you a heads up.
Sue, are you going to be reporting or any questions for your report?
Well, nothing in addition to the report. We are still ongoing with this year's construction project because we did start 2 months late due to the pandemic in the springtime. But we don't foresee any issue with it getting finished up in the month of November. Unfortunately, we could have some cold weather, and in fact, we might get some cold weather this weekend. So customers have been notified by the contractor. The customers that are still connected to the bypass got notifications to flow some water in their piping during the cold night, which is tomorrow night. And in case anyone does contact you about it, they are going to use a reverse 411 system to message the people on the bypass tomorrow. Just again, reminding them to flow a little bit of water on Friday night. But aside from that, the project is going well. They're moving along. We did get a very good price this year. So financially, it's also one of the lower cost per foot projects that we've done in recent years. So things are going well. The only thing I mentioned in the report that didn't go well is that we are not going to be adding Mount Hope Avenue to the contract. We will have to do that street another time when we do another cleaning and lining project.
Gotcha. I noticed at the bottom on the expansion of the high pressure zone, you mentioned that the improvements are going to help 1,000 customers. That's part of the original 2,900, I believe, that are considered all within that high pressure zone.
I wasn't here when the original planning was done, but yeah, we have 2 more phases, or we're going to split the remaining work into 2 years. And next year's portion will add 1,000 people.
Yeah.
We're still, working on the exact piping that's needed and valves and exactly where we'll end next year and then complete it the following year.
I seem to recall that most of it, a little tiny piece was in Warren, but
Yep.
most of it is in Bristol. And it was somewhere close to 2,900 homes overall. But this is great news, certainly
makes
for
sense.
those people.
Yes, those people will be happy. And that is why we're not actually, we're not quite to having a map that shows where they all are right now, but we probably will for the next board meeting. But because the people who are in the expansion will be quite happy, we don't want to falsely get people happy. Until we know they're really going to be happy. But so for the next board meeting, I think we'll be able to produce a little sketch showing where the expansion will be exactly.
Great, thank you.
When this is completed, will that eliminate the booster pumps?
It will eliminate the need for those people that get into the high pressure zone it will most likely, unless they want really good pressure, relieve the need for that.
George?
Just going back to solar power, Pam, how would the BCWA benefit from purchasing solar credits?
Essentially, in this case, for the proposal that was given to us, would be a 20% reduction in the national grid rate for the next 25 years. The issue is we would have to sign a contract for a certain amount over the next 25 years. And we've also been looking into perhaps doing some solar power ourselves, although that so far hasn't been very successful. But we might consider just doing a portion of our power needs so we're looking into this further. We're waiting for the vendor also to give us some additional information.
That's with no capital investment, if I understand correctly.
That's correct. No capital investment on our part. It's just strictly you have to sign a 25-year contract and you get 20% off whatever the going rate is from National Grid for the next 25 years.
Sounds like a pretty good deal, unless there's a lower rate someplace else.
Right, we have been contacted by firms that would be interested in developing actually solar power on our property, and which would give us a better rate, but we don't really have much that would be an appropriate location. So we're just going to take a little bit of time first to investigate that further, but
Sometimes items that seem too good to be true are too good to be true. That I think we really need to have it looked at from top to bottom by legal, and you know, tapping anything in for 25 years is an issue. But
Juan?
Yeah, on the solar, so was the proposal to provide all of our power needs?
no,
There was a certain percentage?
A discount.
No, I understand the discount portion, but it's a discount on all of our power.
right. We would be one of the smaller partners, maybe the smallest they've ever had, because our power compared to the towns of Bristol or whatever, we're like nothing. Our bills are.
I read that and I understand that part. What I'm asking is, say for instance, our total electric bill right now is $50,000.
Right.
Would they be,
That's
that's total
close.
for everything?
and it would be 20% off the 50,000. Or we
Okay.
could even add to that because we're building a new pump station. So say we wanted to make it 60,000.
Right.
So,
They would
yeah.
give us 20% off of 60,000.
So we might save $12,000 to $15,000, which is not a lot of money if our liability on a 25-year contract that really has to be looked at and analyzed.
Right. No, that answers my question because you are looking at the total, a reduction from the total bill. I had another question though on the Mount Hope Avenue contract. Sue, in your report, you say, unfortunately, the contractor has declined to add this work at the contract unit bid prices.
Right, which is how you would normally add, work to a contract.
Right. And my question is, so he's allowed to refuse the work, to do the work?
Well, it wasn't in the original contract. This was going to be added. And so we asked originally, we said, would you be willing to add some extra streets to the contract? He did add Rock, Shaw's and Ryan, which we did. But then this particular street, he said it could not be done at the prices he bid because it had some additional work that was more above and beyond things that how he had bid the job. Additional pits, additional excavation or whatever. He said he was not willing to do it just using the contract prices.
Okay,
He did bid the project very low. That's part of the issue. He bid the entire contract very low. It's been good for the contract, but for that reason, he didn't want to do additional.
Did I answer your question?
it answers my question. It's unfortunate that
It's
we can't
unfortunate, yes, but
get done, and I don't know, in the future, I would hope that we had something more in there that would almost require them to do the work if that's possible, but that's the future. We'll worry about
Yeah.
that some other day.
Okay. Mike, you have anything to add to your report, sir? Where'd he go?
he's there.
Okay.
I'm here. Not too much to add. The big thing we deployed over the past month was our gateway units to collect meter data. Something we were really excited about. We got them up and running, and we were able to coordinate the software side, so we could see what the gateways were actually seeing. So right off the bat, we got 5 up and running, and we were around 80%, 81% recovery. That's where we were, fingers crossed, we were hoping for better because they were seeing a very high quantity. But it was in the anticipated zone based on pre-deployment propagation studies. So we immediately dug into the data, and now we're assessing future sites to get that percent recovery up. So we have 2 more sites identified. We did some more propagation. We're hoping those 2 sites will yield us up to 85+ recovery. And then we'll continue the assessment going forward to try to get as much as we can. And then we'll do further data analysis on our existing infrastructure, and if we have to upgrade, relocate MIUs to get better reception. So yeah, we were all really excited about that deployment, and we're looking forward to expanding it.
Do you have a projected time for completion when 100% can be picked up? 100% of the readings of our system picked up?
As of right now, we don't. So it could, because the schedule, we hope to have Unit 6 deployed by the end of next week, but to start it requires the Neptune rep to travel up here. So we don't know how well we can coordinate deployment of units with her travel schedule, especially as the situation nationally evolves. If she comes up one at a time and we'll start them, we can really deploy this quickly. If there's a minimum required for her to travel, it's going to take a little bit longer. But we're hoping to get the next 2 done, assess, and immediately go into siting units 8 and 9.
I guess my question is more, is this something that is dependent upon the winter? Or is this something that, say, in the next 2 months it should be completed, or is this something could take 6 months to
I would say conservatively 6 months. We're going to continue on it. Sadly, as we go into the winter, reception is better, leaf fall. So we'll get better propagation of those wavelengths. And then as the leaves come back on, we'll have to reassess. But we are going to keep this moving. We're in a trial period of the software. Come next fiscal year, we go live with the software. So we're hoping we keep everything moving along. We are, the meter project as a whole, we are over 90%. And as that builds out, we have about 1,300 left to go. And we're still scheduling those, we're still moving along. So we're hoping everything falls together at the same time.
well, it's obvious. My questioning is, how soon we'll be able to fulfill our long-term goal, and that is monthly billing. And I realize everything has to happen. All the pieces of the puzzle have to come together and be operative. So that's why I was asking the question. But that's fine. I mean, I certainly don't want you to push anything harder than you are. I think you're doing it fine. I'm just trying to get a sense of when the board finally would be able to make the final decisions about moving into the monthly billing.
Absolutely. And I think we can flush that out as we get this new software up and running, because we're not going to have 100% recovery on meters. So that's going to require some policies to be changed on how we actually recover the reads, because we'll have, say, 90% recovery and still 10% that we're going to have to physically collect. So that's going to require us to adapt, but until we get 100% recovery. So that's a moving target, because we don't know where those not found reads will be until we deploy the system. So it is on our radar as far as getting up and running parallel and trying to flush these issues out. But it is a moving target.
Mike, is this typical? Neptune says this is typically what happens when any system is converted, or is this has to do with our topography or something, or the trees or whatever?
All of the above. And uniquely enough, the way we're situated, we're actually collecting a lot of data. And we think it's amplification off the surrounding water. But there's a couple of things. Our topography, the amount, the density, clusters of buildings, so the poor reception, and we're seeing that right now, where we're not getting the best reception where there's a large density of homes. Also, the position of the transmitter, and that can vary from structure to structure, east facing, west facing. And then the other variable is inside versus outside. So there's a few different dynamics at play. We have modeled through their propagation analysis a couple different scenarios so that we can best cite and get understanding before we actually deploy units of inside, outside, leaf on, leaf off. So we're able to tell as best as possible before we take action.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Yes, George.
Mike, could you comment on the leak on the East Bay pipeline, please?
Absolutely. So sadly, yes, we went through Smart Ball. We did 38,000 feet, and we found one acoustic event. And so those acoustic events, Smart Ball is really tailored towards looking for noise. And those noises are in Smart Ball's case, associated with gas pockets from gravity pipelines just going up and down, up and down. Those peaks and valleys sometimes collect air, especially in the peaks. The other noise is leaks. So I can dive into it later. I have some representations of the actual acoustic signature and what it means and where we think it is. But it does appear to be a small leak in the 2 to 10, according to our vendor, 2 to 10 gallons per minute leak in the pipeline.
We're going to cover that on item number 9, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do it then. Meanwhile, one of our staff is standing there with the finger in the dike, so to speak. No. Okay.
Well, let me just ask a question. Do we have a guarantee from the contractor who put in the liner?
We do have a normal contract warranty, but we are outside of the limits of disturbance associated with the PVC relining.
In other words, the leak is not in where the lining was put in.
Correct. It's approximately 600 feet away.
Not under the river.
in the other direction.
No,
Yep.
thank goodness.
Thank goodness, not in the river, right. Okay, any other questions? Fine. Financial report. Mark?
Okay. Everybody's got the September financials in the packet.
Yep.
You would never know from the financials that we have gone through a COVID crisis and all kinds of issues for 2020. On the financials alone, 2020 is a very good year. Just on billings, we've consumption is up 11%. Dollars in the billings are up 16%, and that's on the bills that have gone out through September. On the financials, which takes into account accruals and unbilled revenue, we still have the bills that are going out for October are still very robust, because it would include August, September, and October, which we were still selling a lot of water. So we're having a very good year there. We're over budget. Expenses are under budget, and there are quite a few expenses we've gone through that we didn't spend a lot of money this year on that were budgeted, such as trade shows, all of those things where there are basically no travel or trade shows, which some of that. Education seminars, all that area is down as well. So the only thing up in expenses is depreciation, which is a non-cash item. So we're in very good shape there. As Pam mentioned, we're both working diligently on budgets and assumptions. There's a lot of assumptions we have to take into account, as this is basically our swan song to retirement, our last budget. But we're trying to give a good overview of many assumptions with and without, might be monthly billing, not monthly billing. If East Providence joins us, if not. So we're working on bond assumptions on both ways where we stand, and I think in a month or so we'll be able to get together with the finance committee and throw a lot of these numbers out there. So we're trying to have good answers for the next regime to work with, as far as the direction the board may take, as well as the direction of the new director and the new finance person. Probably right now, it looks like I'll be staying on until there's Randy. Good night. I'm staying on until things get an adjustment with the new director. We have a replacement for Sid we're interviewing for now. So we have a lot of transition in people. So I'm flexible to stay as long as that transition needs some assistance, and then I'll be available on a consulting basis for up to a year to help the new people through the new bonding, that type of thing, the new cycles audit, and then the budget next year.
Gotcha.
One big thing we're working on, the 2014 TD Bank loan was a 20-year amortization, 7-year with a balloon payment, which would be due next September, of $6.5 million. We've already started to work with them to see if we can resolve that before the new director gets in, not to have them to have to work immediately on that issue. And it looks like TD Bank will work with us and a refunding on that loan to take care of the 6.5 million at a reduced interest rate. We're currently paying about 2.4 down to 1.5. So we've got some savings there. but we're going to reduce, I think, because a lot of our bond exposure is going to be in the 5 to 10 year period. So I think we're going to aggressively, instead of paying it over the next 10 or 12 years, they've offered a very low rate. I think it's 1.3% if we go to a 7-year. So basically work very aggressively while our debt service is not at a maximum, get that paid off. So if we do need to really get aggressive to do the pipeline, say without the participation of East Providence, that we can probably go into a infrastructure bank loan, a 30-year loan with no principal for the first 3 years, almost until that is paid off. So we don't bunch up too much in the next 5 to 7 years of getting too high on the debt service. So hopefully we can put that together, and that's one of the assumptions we're going to make on the budget we're putting forward. So everything's been kind of pushed off. We really don't know how long it's going to take to get a lot of these things resolved, to get in, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2. So
it sounds like you're taking our customers into consideration, that moving forward with a very low interest rate is in their best interest in the final analysis.
absolutely, and to get that taken care of quickly opens up another $6 or $7 million that we can borrow years 5, 6, or 7 if needed. But some of the scenarios I think we'll work with the finance committee will be, what do we have to do if East Providence doesn't participate? What impact will that be on rates in the next years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 if we go that route?
Right.
So there's a lot we're working on, trying to get everything just right this year. So
Appreciate that. Anyone have any questions?
Mark, I have a question. Is there a drop dead here? So when this budget comes out, you know whether or not East Providence is going to be there or not?
No, I mean, our operational budget, that's kind of more in line with Pam's capital budget. Most of those expenses are capital, but it'll depend on how we bond for that. I mean, right now, the budget for next year will be impacted very little from no matter what they do. The operational budget, and we don't expect spending much money, if any, other than maybe some design work on phase 2 in FY22. So construction, Pam, what can add to that when we expect maybe the construction work to start on that could be, 3, 4, 5 years away, maybe.
Probably about 3. But right now I sent the letters to East Providence. I have had no response whatsoever, other than the fact that I've been told they'd been trying to get it on the council agenda. They just had too many other issues up front. And they still want to do the pipeline, but I'm developing plans as to what happens if they don't join us and where will that take us.
As you know, I've been a skeptic on this, and the question is, at what point do we tell them that there's a drop dead date?
I agree with Gina.
I would want to go to if we got to that point, Gina, I would want to go to the state and let them know that this would be an incredible shame if we were to downsize that pipe, which ultimately they're going to need, and that the state should step in and pay the difference and then ultimately settle up with East Providence when they can afford it. Because think about it, 5-mile pipe downsized only to take our 4 million.
You're preaching to the choir. The
Yeah,
question
well, I'm just saying, but I would want to go to the state first before I, ultimately pull the plug on everything and change our design down.
what is our drop dead date to go to the state and deliver that message?
I don't know. It probably is before we give the first construction contract. Would that be appropriate? Is that the right time?
Alan, I disagree with that, because if you wait until you're going to go out for design, the state reacts in a yearly basis, possibly. So you're going to lose your whole design effort as well as your start of construction.
I totally agree with you. I think it backs us into a corner where it could cost us more.
Well, maybe Pam can offer something here, because we've had some conversations about this dual design.
I think we've talked with our legislators. We're going to be obviously talking to them again about the Bristol County Water Act. Actually, we share right now a legislator with East Providence, and she brought in other ones that were concerned as well that East Providence would not have the source of supply from Pawtucket through the pipeline. So I think we need, again, to discuss with them after the election is to take a much better look at what's happening, and they need to speak with their politicians from the towns as to where they're going with this, and are they really going to bypass this opportunity? And the state won't provide any funding. Obviously, they're in a world of hurt right now, besides with COVID and all the extra expenses. And unfortunately, the federal financing is all going towards loans. There's not much available for grants. But the infrastructure bank is willing to work with us and with the city of East Providence to structure a loan over 30 years in such a way that it makes it reasonable as possible. And certainly splitting the cost would be the best option for both utilities. So we're gonna start pushing that with the reps after the election, and then start trying to put a little more pressure on the city representatives.
Well, before our next meeting, I'd like to have an answer on what is our date that we notify the state and East Providence that if we don't have a firm commitment from them, we are going forward without them.
Well, we won't get a firm commitment from them in the near future.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this, we need to focus on what's under our control, which is what is the date that we are going to establish and say to the state and East Providence, if we don't hear affirmatively from you, we're going to go ahead with our engineering to serve just Bristol, Barrington, and Warren.
Well, we could wait another year. Since we're doing the engineering, it's not that big a deal to change it from a 30-inch to a 24-inch pipe. So all the engineering would be suitable for both.
Well, my suggestion when you're dealing with people who make decisions the way both the state and East Providence make them is to tell them in writing that if we don't hear from them by, let's just say October 1st, 2021, we are obligated to go forward without them, and then the board will vote on that. Because otherwise, we're going to be participating in the salami school of negotiation, I think.
Well, we have to change the act. I mean, we'll hear a little later on, I think, from Joe as to where the rework is on the legislation. I think the real push is going to start after this election with if there's a new group, wherever it is, getting those people at the state level totally informed on what the odds are, what the options are, so they understand it completely. We know that there's a reluctance for whatever the reason. I think it's financial. The reason in East Providence, certainly the mayor has been on our side and been very helpful, as a matter of fact. So I think that the first juncture where there's a real push on this is right after the election. That's when we really start the effort.
I agree with Gina and Bob wholeheartedly. The only question I have is, the minute we send them an ultimatum, can East Providence say to us, you're not coming through here unless you give us the pipe we want?
Most of the pipeline will be done in state road. So they've already stated they would not interfere with us going down through the state road.
They could certainly give us a hard time.
They certainly could.
I mean, that could be done. That happened when we put the original pipeline in. They got all kinds of stuff out of us that had nothing to do with bringing the main pipeline down to our connection in Barrington. So,
And it's still haunting us today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, if they're not interested, they can make it difficult for us. I can assure you of that.
I think we have to be careful. If we press it too early, that we're going to do it ourselves. And as we're looking at what this is going to cost, and we look at the numbers, doing it ourselves will subject the ratepayers to some extreme increases to do that.
Mark, you're telling us that as if it's under our control.
No, it's not under our control, but
our choice, if they continue to delay, is to delay, which I think presents a bigger risk to our ratepayers.
Yeah, well, we also want to see what the real numbers are, because when we talk about changes, we put in a 10% change. There was not one person who objected, and I think that's because people see the work that's being done that affects the system. They're not arguing with us. Either that or their minds are someplace else. But I mean, normally we get a big feedback from the legislative group. We didn't get any negative feedback from them. We didn't get any negative feedback from our water customers. So I think they understand what's going on, or at least it hasn't reached, what is going on hasn't reached a level of disturbance in their minds. And I think it's wise to be cautious as we move forward. We want to put on a pressure, but a gentle but continuing pressure. And certainly we want to have a whole layout. Like you say, Gina, it's important to have the whole layout, where we're going to go, when we're going to make these decisions. That makes sense for us. But again, I emphasize that I think the state at the very highest levels need to be made aware with a presentation of just what this means to the county.
Right. The biggest uncertainty is what this is going to cost. And just in the last few years, we've gone up, I don't know, 10, 15 million. That, a few years from now, it could be up in the 50, 55 million. And then it becomes a real burden on the authority. But
we're going to find that out once we have the design done, I think.
Yeah, well,
I understand the concern for the price, but I thought we as a board agreed that we were going to do it on our own if we had to.
That's right.
Period. That's it.
That's right. You're right, John. We owe it to the county, the three towns, and we have to give them this alternate supply. So
I think we are prepared to do that, and but we need to bring the numbers forward.
But let's
We're
not,
starting with the finance committee.
But let's not talk about the numbers until we have the numbers in front of us. And it may be a range that you want to show us, but let's not use, they're going to be big. Let's put in the numbers, put in the ranges, whatever, like right. Where's the cone of the hurricane travel? What's the cone of the financial travel for the project? That kind of thing is useful to take a look at. A couple of options. Things go well, things don't go so well, whatever. That kind of change, I think, would help put the board's mind more at ease on when we need to make these critical decisions.
Right.
Anywho, any other questions for Mark? Okay, you're all set.
I still have a question, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
When will we see these numbers that show us the different options? Is that going to be part of this next budget?
I don't think so.
There's probably nothing in the next year's budget that would implicate going either way. Because nothing is really going to happen other than design, probably in FY22.
Bob, it's that 5 miles, right, Pam? It's the 5 miles from the East Providence system to the Pawtucket line.
That's correct. It'll probably be a bit longer than that, though, looking at alternative routes. But where it will show up is we're doing our 5 and 10-year capital plans, and which will be part of what will be presented in the next couple months. And Mark does his 10-year financial plan. So that'll tie in the debt service for the project. And it'll give, and we'll probably do it 2 ways, with us just building the pipeline and with sharing the cost with East Providence, just to show what the differences would be. And it will give us an idea of where we need to go in the future with rate increases. So we will be putting that in the longer term plans, which you will be seeing.
Does that answer your question, Bob?
Yes, sir. I'm just, I guess I'll wait for the 5 and 10-year capital plan so we could see the options.
Understand. Okay, next item is the number 8. Excuse me, number 7. I got out of whack here with something. That's the task order amendment for repair of the pipeline.
Yes, we have not yet closed out the lining of the pipeline. There's a little bit of work left to do. We're just setting up the cathodic protection. There's been issues with obtaining an easement through the city of Providence, which has required a bit more engineering time on their behalf, and several other issues. So they did incorporate more of the engineering work than was originally planned. We went through the expenses and the work that they did, and we agree with the fact that we should provide an additional $17,109 for the engineering services.
For Beta.
For
And
Beta.
have a motion for that.
So moved.
So moved. Tom, a second? I'll second it. Oh, Bill seconds it. Any discussion, questions? Yes, Juan.
Juan, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Yep, okay.
There you go.
It's usually, people usually always try to muzzle me, so I'm not usually used to having done it to myself. In any case, the first spreadsheet attached to the memo, it's titled Finish Line Costs, and it's got all the numbers here. Is this all of the costs that were incurred for this construction administration and resident inspection? Or is this is just the additional costs?
The additional.
This is the additional costs. And what was the total cost for the construction administration and resident inspection, roughly speaking? For
I don't have those offhand.
Okay.
Get them to you.
It's on the previous memo at the bottom. It's about 200,000, 199.
Okay.
Oh, you're right.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
99,000.
Are we ready to vote? All right, let's go down the list here. Chris? This is for the $17,109 to Beta Corporation for the additional.
Aye.
Aye for that. Juan?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Bill? John?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
And I say yes, it's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is a task order for the design of the upper reservoir removal.
Yes, the DOT has been working on their design, and they were coordinating information with our engineering design, and they needed some additional modeling to be able to complete their work. They're looking to replace the bridge on Schoolhouse Road and the culverts underneath the bridge. So they needed more information on levels of base levels for water flow and modeling as far as storm velocities and water velocities that would be passing through the area. So this was an additional $12,000 on behalf of PARS work. So I propose that we award the additional $12,000 under the contract for the design of the removal of the upper dam.
Need a motion for that? Bill says it's moved. I need a second.
Second.
Tom seconds it. Questions, comments? Ready to vote. Chris?
Aye.
Juan? Yes, Bob?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Bill? John?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
And I say yes. Taken care of. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to mention, we did do a meeting of the dam committee last night. It was, PAR did a presentation for where we were up to date with the design and the permitting process. And Wenley Ferguson of Save the Bay did a presentation on the water quality sampling we've done in the reservoir. And it was very successful. The committee was very grateful to be updated. It was very similar to the presentation we did for the board earlier this year. We probably will be doing one for the board maybe in the next couple months to update you as to where we are on the permitting. And it was very interesting is the fact that the reservoir, as we mentioned before, has been increasing in salinity to the point that now they are actually seeing plants, freshwater plants are dying, and they are being replaced with more saltwater tolerant plants. We're also seeing blue crabs now throughout the reservoir. So it's definitely an indication of higher salinity. So it's absolutely no longer viable for a drinking water supply, no matter what anyone might say. So we are turning into a saltwater estuary, whether we like it or not. The sea level rise is higher than expected for this decade, as far as what they were predicting for 2020. And we are seeing more seawater coming through the dam and even over the dam. And we are also seeing some salinity levels increasing above the upper dam into that pond area where we had initially thought would be safe from seawater intrusion. And that was the original reason for the dam was installed to protect a portion of the upper reservoir in case of saltwater intrusion during hurricanes and so on. But also that does not appear to be any more viable than the lower reservoir at this point. So removing the dams still looks like the best option going forward for the health of the environment and for the resiliency in the area, reducing the flooding, and for lessening our expenses in the future. We're getting a lot of support from a number of agencies. So we're also going to be looking into more funding through the federal programs next year. So
Who is that?
I'm done.
Okay. Search for the new executive director. Mike, can I ask you to back off from this, please?
Sure.
I'll put Mike in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just to be clear, we're not in executive session, so,
Well, I realize that.
well, I'm just saying you need to be careful if,
I say,
Just, you're at the ready to pounce. I sent out a memo. Everyone got a memo about what the process was going to be. Everyone should have received this memo. And the memo asks for your approval of this final interview process. If everyone is agreed to it, then we'll just keep going this way. If you have questions or you want to change it, then we need to discuss it. And I don't think we're going to say anything in there that requires executive session. So I'm anxious to hear anything from any of the members of the board members. You all, I'm assuming you all received this. Sid sent it forward to you. It's been approved by Joe. He's looked at it. I reviewed that with him. The board got copies of this. The Personnel Committee got copies of this when I sent it to Joe, so they know what I was doing. There were recommendations made, but essentially it boils down that we will have the three of us from the Personnel Committee on site. The individuals will come in to the site. The rest of the board members will be on Zoom. Everyone will have copies of the questions and a space to do the ratings on the questions. And you'll rate them 10 down to 1. And when we conclude, we're talking about an hour for each of the interviews, 15 minutes to shake it off, another hour. And then after that second interview, we will compile we won't talk about the individuals until we're finished with both of them. We'll compile all the numbers so that we'll use that to start with. I think that's a fairer system rather than having someone say, I move to engage X or Y. So we first look at all the numbers and see what everyone's general ratings have turned out to be. If anyone on the board wants to change that or has questions about it, now's the time.
Alan, this is Gina. I don't recall getting that memo from you. Did it go out?
Sid sent that. I sent it back to Sid after I got
Does
the
everybody
response.
else have it?
I got one.
Yes.
Okay.
But it basically says just what I just said.
Yeah, no, I know because you talked about it, but that's fine.
Right. I'm sorry you didn't get that. I don't know why.
Well, I'm just double checking to see if I got it from Sid. Yep, I did.
Okay.
I was looking in my files for it coming from you. That's why I didn't find it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Not your.
I think on the personnel committee side, we decided that this would be the smoothest and easiest way for us to work through this and come to a conclusion and as fast as we can. And I suppose, well, we really gave Alan the ball and asked Alan to pursue all this and put it together for us.
No, it looks good. I apologize. I was just looking for it under his name and I do have it under Sid's.
Okay. So I hear from no one else. So we're all set. We'll move forward as planned. The letters have been sent. Joe, you are expecting to get a response so that the individuals know that that's the time they're to show up?
yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll get a response. I can follow up with them just to remind
Okay,
them.
just to make sure and not to come early,
Yep.
whatever.
You want to reiterate that date and time, Alan? So
Yeah, that's another meeting. That's going to be starting at 4:15, I guess, on November the 5th. That's next Thursday. And that will be held in executive session.
And the first interview will be at 4:30, 4:15, and the second one will be at 5:30.
Right. So we'll probably sign in a couple of minutes before that.
I hope I get on. Oh, well, I'm going to be there, so I won't have to.
Yeah, you'll be there. You'll be there. Juan and you and I will be there along with Pam and Sid to communicate the stuff. And Mark will be there, and Joe will be coming in on Zoom. I think Joe Granata might be there as well. So that's who's going to be there as advisors and as us in the room. There's enough space to do this appropriately, and everyone will see the candidates. So we're setting it up so that this candidate will see, you'll see the candidate in mid-screen. Okay, moving on. I guess we're going to go into executive. Thank you all, by the way, for following the lead of the Personnel Committee. We're going into executive session.
I'll bring Mike back in first.
Yes, certainly.
Didn't you guys forget the smart ball presentation?
Yeah, number 9.
I'm sorry. I thought
Nope,
I guess we got to do that. I moved too fast. My fault. Bring him back in.
He's here.
Okay.
Mike?
All right.
Okay, so let's have that presentation. Thank you.
All right, Pam, can I share my screen here?
I'm going to need to transfer host. No, it's all right. Huh, I did this yesterday. It's not letting me do it today. I can share screen, but I can't transfer host.
Bill, you look like Joe Buck over there with that headset on.
That covers your ears completely, Bill?
Can't hear you.
That's a good question. Let me see. Yeah, it is.
I bought a pair, and they're smaller, and I can have them on for about a half hour, and then it hurts my ears. So
Actually, I picked these up from Sid. She was passing them out, so it's good.
Actually, it's not letting me do it.
All right, so I can email it to you, Pam, and then you can.
And
show
I'll put it up. Yeah.
All right, here it comes.
Very strange. I said I just did it yesterday.
Anybody want to talk about my New York Giants cup?
Throw it out.
one thing is for sure that we know, George Champlin has got a birthday coming up next week.
Uh-oh.
We
How
don't
do you know that?
We don't know the year. It's some multiple of 39. But
That's got to come under the executive session because we can't let anybody know.
No, that's personal information. Public gets a hold of that, forget it.
Nope, still don't have it, Mike.
It went. Should be in your system now.
Must be in slow mail.
And I guess while we're
Oh,
waiting,
there
I
it
should
is.
say that we thanks to Gina and to George, they were the ones behind the push to move from 65 to 70% stocks in our trust fund, pension trust fund. So they're the critters who pushed us into that area.
Good.
We probably should consider going to 80%.
Yeah. Well, that's as soon as the finance committee decides to make a recommendation, I think the board will listen.
All right, get back to Share screen. All right.
There we go.
Smart ball.
There we go.
All right.
If you're from New England, you have to say smart, right? Smart ball.
So, yep, sorry about the delay. But yeah, as everybody knows, we did smart ball. So here we have the overview of the route, 38,000 feet. One unique stat is the ball was in the pipe for almost 11 hours over the course of 2 trips. So it was in the pipeline for a long time. And that went to a lot of the planning we did to ensure we could move a set velocity of water, which is a substantial quantity, for that 11 hours. So we had to lower tanks and ensure that we could move that volume. And then we had to use the water to prep for that second run. So a lot of planning went in, a lot of locating of the line. We did get more precise locations throughout its alignment that we're incorporating into our records. So all in all, sadly, nobody wants to find failures, but it was a worthwhile investment for the authority. So if you want to go to the next slide, Pam, this was in the report. I thought this was a great graphic to kind of, not to beat a dead horse on the smart ball and what it is, but I thought this represented the process quite well. From the left, we have the claw and the access point where we're actually dropping the ball in, and then the ball rolls. In this graphic, we would have spanned 7 miles between the left and right side of the picture. And then those are 2 representatives of what we were looking for, the leaks and gas pockets. So gas pockets, we like to try to get rid of those. They impede flow. So it's essentially like having a flow restriction in your pipe. To mitigate the gas pockets, because they do form, we do site valving at those locations. It's something we did in the first phase of the pipeline, where we'll actually put valves called air release valves at the top of the pipelines there to automatically remove the air from the pipeline. All right, so here's some more pictures. That's the actual ball that went in the pipeline. Those are some of the intelligence behind it on the left. And then to support this, we also had to deploy the ball into the pipe. So that involved constructing access points. So the one on the left is the one we built during the PVC lining job. We incorporated Xylem Pure Technologies requirements for access into the design so we could easily perform this type of inspection at any time in the future. On the right is where we took the tool out of the pipe. So that is the net deployment tool you see sticking out of the ground there, but we were able to modify an existing air release valve manhole where we drilled a 6-inch hole in the pipe to deploy that net and ensure we could get it out. It was a single point of failure. If we missed that ball at that point, it was gone. There was no way to get it out. So we would have had to find it. We would have had 20 hours worth of ball. It's like a sonde. It gives out an acoustic signal so you can tell where it is. But we did not have a backup site to deploy a second net. So we were good. We were 2 for 2 on catching it. So went very well. But the inspection did yield an acoustic anomaly. And the acoustic signature is reflective of a leak, sadly. The leak appears to be in the Silver Spring Golf Course, that if for a leak on this pipeline, that is a convenient location. The excavations required to get to this pipe are quite large excavation time. They become very expensive. Here we'll have to manage some grass restoration, but it's much cheaper as far as mobilization and restoration associated with, say, digging out on the main drag there. The results of the smart ball, it's basically a microphone going through the pipe, and it's looking for the sounds. Basically, when the ball goes through and there's no leaks, it's a very smooth, like a smooth wind going through the pipe. And then you get these peaks where there's an event. So this is the output specifically from the report. And if we go to the next slide, we can kind of zoom in on what this means. So we have an intensity. They documented around 20 decibels of intensity. And that is showing the tool listening to the sound as it approaches and as it departs the actual event. This is run 1 and run 2. So it found it both times, and it was replicated in the second run in both location and intensity. So they you know, to find a leak, they were at least happy that the data looked good. So they were confident in what they found. So this is their output. They give us a dig sheet. So this identifies the physical infrastructure as far as where we worked on the PVC lining job. We worked down towards the left, station 99 plus 55.
And by the way, that's where we drove into that cul-de-sac, came right around that green and parked our cars, those of us that visited the site to the left.
Yes.
That was the little service road that we came in.
So all of our work took part to the west of the bend identified as bend 1 at station 100. Where we're thinking and then you can see right in the middle of this picture where they think the leak is. With that, it does seem like it's an unrelated event. It does seem like it's associated with what they think is a pipe joint. If you want to go to the next slide, Pam. So where they think it is, there's a lot going on. Based on the sound, they qualify it as a medium leak. So they think that's about 2 to 10 gallons a minute. And this is an as-built from the actual installation of contract 7 from 1997, 1998. And all those arrows point to different appurtenances on the line, whether it's a fitting, a transition, basically just those two, fittings and transitions of different types. So we have 11 and 45 degree vertical and horizontal bends. We have steel pipeline transitioning to ductile pipeline. So there's a lot of potential for failure. And what exactly failure is still yet to be determined. So they gave us the information, and because excavation is quite expensive, we're taking a deep dive into the data. So we found some discrepancy on the actual location based on the data they provided us, because we're QA/QCing it, making sure everything lines up for exactly. So when we go dig that hole, we want to ideally find the event. Significant trenching, digging, remobilizing to another location, just more time, more money, more restoration. So one point of failure that is clear on both sides of the river is the transition to steel and ductile. It was on our radar. It's always been on our radar based on the type of transition it is. And based on the discrepancy we found, it may actually be putting us closer to that. So that is a unique type of joint. It's a joint that's not usually buried. It's called a flange by flange joint that's actually bolted together. So that there's no overlap in that type of joint where you normally have a bell spigot type configuration. These are two flat planes that come together and bolt together like a sandwich. So we're also gearing up for a potential of that. So right now we have people sourcing that hardware in case we have to rebuild that, which are, it's unique. You know, they're 9-inch, 1.25-inch bolts that would bolt that up. So we're looking at a bunch of different possibilities. Why chase the leak? Leaks do add up. This is one of, you know, potentially many. And this is what they say. The research says it's not the big leaks. You find the big ones. They surface. People call. It's these small leaks that don't surface. So a 100 gallon per minute leak is going to surface, but 100 1 gallon per minute leaks, you may not find those. They're the harder ones to find, but they do add up. So, you know, just a quick sum on this, yields a yearly cost about $6,500. So spread that out over a significant potential term because these are usually corrosion-based issues that manifest themselves for long periods of times before they have a rather large mode of failure. Where we go from here. So our initial field survey of this area put us into a wooded right of way. So we got out there, we started clearing it, we did some ground miking, we're trying to pin down on the exact location. So initially the Pure Xylem staff thought it was in this clearing. And then it turns out once, and this is why we didn't mobilize, because we wanted to get the refined data. The refined data came back and put it further to the west outside of that clearing. But that clearing is still potentially going to be utilized for access. So we try to mitigate as much restoration as possible. So we have a contractor that is cleared to work on that site because that entire site is owned by Mobile, and it is under the purview of DEM based on the subsurface conditions. So they have a health and safety plan that applies to that site. So we did engage them on a change order of the PVC lining contract to provide a rough proposal to excavate and assess the failure. So we secured that, we reviewed it with the engineer, and we're prepared, we're lining things up to pursue it in that manner. The things that we're going to be looking for, if it is what Pure thinks, if it is a pipe joint, we'll be looking for a possible failed gasket, a cracked bell, there's a big grade change in that area. So you could have just an over deflected joint because there's a standard range of deflection. Or it could be corrosion, which is normally what we see. Corrosion, we hope, is longer than 25 years out, which is where we are in this pipeline, but we do see accelerated areas of corrosion. As far as repair, we have started using these encapsulation type couplings. They do come standard off the shelf items for pipe 12-inch and lower. At 30 inches, this would have to be made. Usually anything over 18, you start having to be made by order. So we found this model from JCM Industries. It's an encapsulation coupling that we could potentially utilize if the conditions permit. The only thing, this is an expensive fitting. That one we're looking at there in the picture costs about $10,000, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to make. So that's potentially something we would have to plan for, is that whatever we excavate, we have to secure the hole and keep it open for a while. So we have an estimated cost to repair in the neighborhood of $50,000 based on the contractor's mobilization, anticipated fittings that may be this fitting if it applies, or something else. And then the engineering from Beta that is included in the hopeful costs have been included in that Beta proposal.
Mike,
So,
this is Gina. Can I just ask a question?
yes.
If this leak is occurring, do we have reason to believe we may have other joints that could be failing as well?
Yes, absolutely. Because we couldn't assume that this is a unique condition. But the great news is we did 7.3 miles and no noise anywhere else. But yes, we have had a failed blow off on this pipeline that we replaced a couple of years ago. So corrosion issues are out there, but doing routine inspections now that we're set up for this will hopefully identify corrosion-based issues before they manifest into larger failures, where we would potentially have to lose the pipeline for a period of time.
Mike, I can see how this coupling is bolted together on each side. What makes the seal on the pipe, on the part that engages the pipe directly? How is that seal affected?
So that will get bolted down together, like you say, and there'll be a gasket in between those two mating flanges there. On the rings, there's two different ways. So sometimes the gasket actually wraps around the pipe,
okay.
And then that top piece will actually compress the gasket onto the pipe, and that creates enough pressure and interference that it seals. That's how the smaller ones work. This one is actually quite robust. So that will sandwich down. A gasket will then get strung around the outside of it, and you'll have split rings that then compress the gasket into that main body. And that will compress everything together and create the interference that then seals it. So it's quite robust. There is a whole bolt pattern that goes around the ends of that unit.
I got you. Thank you. How is
Any other
this,
questions?
what's the schedule for doing this?
So we've reached out to the city of East Providence. We just to give them a inkling, the plan. We want to be forthcoming, because there is a chance something bad happens, and we always want to prepare for the worst. So we just reached out about activating the emergency interconnection should something go awry, and we told them potentially late next week, but based on the weather and this discrepancy that we found in the Pure data, things are probably lining up for the week after, barring any procurement issues that we're working on right now to try to source and ensure we have everything lined up.
Do we have a useful life for this pipe? Is this outside the parameters of how long it should be expected to last?
Depending on the mode of failure. So if it is on the barrel of the pipe, we are considerably less than the anticipated design life. If this is a failure of a bolt on that flange joint, it could be a function of the in situ conditions versus the alloy that makes up the bolt. And that is one reason why we've going forward with a cathodic protection system to protect that steel as much as possible. So we're not sacrificing things to the ground and losing the stability of our infrastructure.
So if it's a bolt, you think it could be affected by something that is touching it in the ground that surrounds it, that's causing it to corrode?
Yeah, there could be chemical-based corrosion reactions that are occurring, yes.
And if that's the case, one assumes that it's going to happen elsewhere.
Yes, yes, you could.
If
Ron,
the
you had a
conditions, if the conditions are the same as you have there. The question, a couple of thoughts or questions here. There's number one, I want to say no leak. I want to preface my questions with no leak is a good thing. I know there isn't any leak that is good, and no leak gets better.
Right.
But my question here is, you indicated in my quick calculations came up with on the high end like 14,400 gallons a day based on the 10 gallons per minute. And so I hear 14,000 gallons a day, and I say, that's not so bad. And the question here is there an industry standard here on what you can expect in terms of what's acceptable in terms of a leak? That'd be my first question.
So there is. So whenever you pressure test a pipe per AWWA, there is an allowable leakage standard. And that normally applies to larger diameter pipes, because larger diameter pipes, they're more cumbersome. They are, it's difficult to ensure the seal when you're talking about a much larger circumference and gasket material. We normally don't try to work with that parameter. We want zero leakage when we pressure test the pipe. Leakage is something where it usually gets worse over time, either through the velocity of that small leak, then create scouring and further degrading that sealing material. So at our size, 30 and less, no allowable leakage is manageable. When you start getting into 10 to 14 foot pipes, usually plan to leak more than some systems drink in a day. So
okay, and I can agree with that. No leak is better than a leak. But the question also here is, do we have as-built drawings from when this pipe was built? And do we have any type of inspection reports by the resident inspectors when this pipe was built? Did they encounter any unusual underground conditions that may have caused this over time? Do we have any of that history?
Yes, yes. So some of those little snippets from the slides were from the as-built. One unique thing about that location is the grade change. There was a significant ledge cut that you can see in the record profiles that was encountered during that installation. We do have some logbooks from the installation as well.
Okay. Last thing, I guess, is again, a leak isn't going to get better. It's going to get worse over time. We're right now at the cusp of okay weather and not so good weather going into the colder months. Is this something that would be better handled, say, next spring? Or is it really, let's do it now and make sure we get it when it's only leaking this much?
Yeah, so the big question is, are we going to have to shut it down? And that's always your fear. And we knew about this just after the inspection. We didn't have the precise location, but we knew there was some sort of event. But the problem with shutting down is relying on your storage. And we don't have that much to shut this pipeline down for that long of time. So we really have to rely on a lower demand period. So we're kind of in the sweet spot. And again, like you say, in early spring is another sweet spot, but before demand picks up and while you're not digging through the frozen ground. So with the unknown nature, before fear is always something that's going to get dramatically worse. That's why we're kind of lining things up with demand to come down, where we can rely on the East Providence interconnection at this level of demand versus a much higher demand over the summer, where like last summer, we had to let the line leak through that high demand period.
And because you do have the as-built, you should be able to pinpoint that joint or any joint along that pipe with considerable precision because you have the as-built. So when you dig for this joint or the leak, hopefully they're one and the same, you should be able to find the joint at least without any difficulty. Is that safe to say?
It is, as long as the location we're provided is accurate. And that's what we're trying to flush out with Pure and Xylem. They gave us a distance from the east and a distance from the west, and they overlap by a little bit. So we would like those to come together and you meet in one spot. And then we know we drop a pin there, we can then do the due diligence and find out what's exactly underneath that pin.
But if you uncover the joint first, instead of looking for the leak, look for the joint. Hear me out. You look for the joint because the as-built will tell you it's X number of feet from wherever, and you have survey coordinates that you can tie into, and you can say, okay, the joint is here, plus or minus a little bit. You uncover the joint and you say there's no leak here, and then that gives you the conclusion it's upstream or downstream, and that's when you would use the smart ball information, and that's where you then determine that you've got something worse than just a joint leak.
As soon as, so and to that point, if we dig and it's not the right location, we have some physical listening devices that we would then put on the pipe. And because we're only 500, 600 feet away from a valve, we would have then 2 points where we could use our digital acoustics to hopefully pinpoint the location in between. And that would make it much more strategic on that second hole, say we miss it the first time.
Thank you.
But that's essentially what we're trying to avoid. We don't want to really dig more than one hole because it's very expensive and it's very deep. Also, we'll be back in the golf course. So we definitely want to do this when golfing season's completed and give us enough time to do some restoration before it starts again in the spring.
Well, when you play golf, you shouldn't expect a hole in one.
Bad joke. Okay, are we concluded with this? Is there anything else we need to do at this point?
No, we just wanted to bring you up to speed as to what was happening and some of the costs that are going to be involved.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. Should we establish a not to exceed cost amount to allow them to negotiate and go into contracts with someone?
So pursuing this through the contract, we do have a significant amount of approved funds available. The awarded contract, we are still projected to be under budget. Will be with these costs and some unsettled change orders that kind of being disputed as of right now, will put us on path to be at the contract value. And then we still have an approved contingency above that that we do not anticipate to approach.
Plus, we are using the line items in the existing contract to apply to the work that's going to be done to repair the leak.
Okay. That answer your question, Bob?
I understand what they're doing, but I would certainly like to see the costs segregated for the two different projects, so we could understand how much we're spending for this leak versus how much we spent in the original contract.
Oh,
that's not a problem.
Yeah, we ought to be able to get that.
Yeah, we're going to capture this all in a unique change order to the contract.
Thank you.
Ready to move on. I think we're now, because I screwed up, I think we're now ready to go into executive session per Rhode Island General Law 42465A2 to talk about the Hope Street tank site. I need someone say they make that motion.
So moved.
It's moved by
Second.
Bill, it's seconded by Juan. Raise your hand, everybody. Gina, raise your voice.
Yes.
Okay, it's done by hand raising, voice raising. At 6:24. Okay, we're back in open session. Motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
So moved.
Same group, Juan and Bill, raise your hands.
Yes.
Everyone, and you said yes, so it is sealed. And I think, other than the note that was not on your agenda, but we've already said our next meeting is next Thursday, the 5th, 4:15. Probably come in a hair before that. That's when the first person arrives, so we should probably start it at 4:05 or something like that, just to make sure we're all there. The ones who are on Zoom, the ones who are seated there, and the people advising us. So I'll take a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Same group, all those in favor say aye.
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 God bless.